Well, a real feature of the national debate post-election has been nuclear energy. As we've discussed here before, a number of government MPs have handed the Prime Minister a letter calling for a parliamentary inquiry into the merits of establishing a nuclear power industry for Australia and dealing with the vexed question of our nuclear medical waste. Today, calls for this debate were bolstered when former South Australian Governor and head of the Nuclear Fuel Cycle Royal Commission and now Chancellor of the University of Adelaide, Rear Admiral Kevin Scarce, spoke out publicly. He joins me tonight live from Adelaide. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Rear Admiral. I want to get into the issue you put forward in comments today in the media. You say Australia should have a mature debate, should be bipartisan where possible. You're not trying to predict the outcome. You obviously would like to see a nuclear industry developed for Australia and us deal with the waste, but you think we should be big enough to have the conversation now that we haven't had in many decades to our detriment. How do you think this conversation is best handled?
Good evening, Peter. I think the best way to handle the conversation is to start from a bipartisan view, because that gives us an advantage to have a mature debate about the issues. They are long-term issues. They impact for generations to come. But I think the public, based upon what I found during the Royal Commission, is certainly up to have the debate. And I think we need to have it now because we're starting to see the implications of some of the climate change activities.
When you headed up the Royal Commission, I have to say I applauded then the Labor Premier, Joe Weatherall, for putting that out there as something to debate in his home state of South Australia. I don't imagine it was easy politically for him. There seemed to be, I think, a very mature, at least at an industry level, in terms of, I think, even the media, to have the debate. Why did that not get the outcome that was desired? Where did it go wrong?
I think in the end, we learned from overseas that it takes a number of years to have this discussion. I think the election was coming up and the decision was made to use a proxy for public opinion to gauge whether we should take the next step. It's very difficult to ask people over 3 weekends to make a decision about whether we should move forward on nuclear debate and nuclear issue. We didn't get the chance to have the detailed discussion. The election came quickly on our heels and the matter was shelved.
And look, you're being kind there about the politics. I think the politics were played very much by the Liberals at the time. And I have to say, you know, all the way through, I mean, I know the Liberal and coalition MPs are trying to drive this, at least at Canberra, and some, to be fair, the leader of the Nationals in New South Wales, John Barilaro, is very much spearheading the debate. But the Liberals, in the history of nuclear energy debates in this country, it's been the Liberals that have more so played politics or given over to a push from the left. So I think it's fascinating that it is now on the table at a Commonwealth level. Why do you think we have such a worry about nuclear power in this country when it is used very safely around the world? And indeed, we have a very safe record in terms of nuclear medicine in this country. Lucas Heights has been well managed. Why do we think, or why do we doubt ourselves that we can take that step up to nuclear energy?
I think there's a very vocal minority that will play the politics here. They're not in favour of it. Often the stories they tell about the implications of nuclear power are certainly nowhere near to the truth. And I think that puts politicians off from engaging in what I would call a mature debate about the issues. We do need to sit down calmly and discuss the issue. At the end of the day, the community decides that we aren't going to do this, then I think we all accept that and move on. But we've got some significant issues in front of us in terms of climate change and how we're going to handle that. And I just think it's timely for us to sit down now and let the scientists give us the facts and let the community debate the facts.
Yeah, I have never bought the argument that we can't have at least the debate and we can't look at the economic merits. There are all these arguments to say that we haven't got the science capability in terms of personnel. Well, we can build that up. We'll need to build it up in your home state of South Australia to manage the sustainment of submarines that come our way. We certainly, spend many, many billions on the subsidies for renewable energies and others. So, prove to me that nuclear will be more expensive. I'm not yet in the camp to say that nuclear would be too expensive. We're not having that debate. We're not looking at the economics. These are the important challenges we have if we are to go down this path, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. And I think you need to take a holistic view of energy generation. You need to understand the cost of renewables, the cost of providing power when renewables are not available, and then you compare that against the cost of generating electricity from nuclear sources. Also, I think we know that we're producing more carbon into the atmosphere. That's impacting upon our climate. What is the cost of not acting now? What is the cost of not having that debate and preparing yourself, what I think is going to happen in 5 to 10 years' time, where we unequivocally can say that we need to do something about fossil fuels and the carbon that they provide into the atmosphere.
Isn't there the sweet spot here for us now, though, because the left who argue very strongly about wanting zero emissions, well, that's met by nuclear. And the other side of the argument, the right that's now leading the charge on a nuclear debate, you get, baseload 24/7 power from nuclear, and it comes together as baseload zero emissions. Both sides of politics should be satisfied. What's been the response to your comments today?
Look... It's always a mixture. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who think that they understand the issues. They're either for it or against it. The vast majority, I think, of our community would say, I don't know enough about it. I want to learn something about it before I make a decision. That's what I'm encouraging, that debate led by scientific advice and timely, enable the community to get to grips with the issues and think about what sort of environment we want to see for the globe into the future. We should be thinking much more broadly than just Australia.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Well done your advocacy today. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Peter.